Yo, what's up with it, y'all? It's JD Travelsthenix, and I'm back with another quick video. And today's video is just going to be about changing locations or changing environments in order to grow and succeed. And before we get into the video, if you're interested in travel, fitness, overall growth content, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you can get updated every time I drop new content. Now let's get back into the video. So I'm over here at the Honolulu Convention Center, where I like to go run the stairs at, and as you can see, those are the stairs over there. But I'm out here in Honolulu, Hawaii, and obviously I'm not from Hawaii if you've watched my channel before. I'm from California, from the Bay Area, and I've done a little bit of moving around in my life. And I've lived in Japan, I've lived in Hawaii, and of course I lived in California, and I've lived in the Bay Area. I grew up in the East Bay area, which is around Oakland, and eventually I ended up moving down to San Jose, which is not too far away, but it's about an hour away. But throughout my life, I've changed locations and changed different environments if I felt it was necessary in order for me to grow and in order for me to prosper. So when I was younger, my mom would always tell me, you know, no matter where you go, you bring yourself with you, which is extremely true. If you're a negative person, if you go to another environment, no matter what environment it is, you're going to bring negativity along with you. Sometimes we're actually a positive person and we're just in a negative environment. For instance, for myself, it had gotten to a point when I was living in the Bay Area where it just got super toxic, at least in the area that I was living in, and just my immediate surroundings, in terms of just the people I was around, in terms of, I don't know, just the prospects for employment, prospects for figuring things out for myself. Things have just gotten super stagnant. So in order for me to grow, I actually had to leave my hometown. I had to leave the area where I was from, and I had to change locations. First, to start off with me going to San Jose, and then eventually I outgrew that area, and I outgrew what I was doing while I was living in the Bay Area, and I ended up going to Japan. And I ended up going to Japan, living there for like 3 years, had a great time out there, learned a lot, learned the language, learned the culture, and eventually it was time for me to leave Japan. Not necessarily because Japan is not a good place to live, but it was just time for me to come back to the United States and start a new journey. And that journey is the journey I've been on since I've been out here in Hawaii. And for me, that journey has mostly been about health, fitness, growth, learning a lot about myself, and starting up a new business I've been doing with my personal training, my online personal training, along with some other things I've been doing out here. So basically, make a long story short, I just wanted to say that it's important to change locations. I honestly think every young man should move away from home at some point in his life. Maybe when you go to college, maybe that's the time you want to move out of your home surroundings and change locations. Maybe it's when you're around 22, 23. But regardless, I think it's important to move out of wherever you come from, experience the world a little bit, check out some different locations, and then maybe if you want to end up going back to wherever you're from, like for myself, if I ever wanted to go back to the Bay Area and live, then that's something I can do and feel good about, because, you know, I've been all over the world. I've been to over 30 different countries. I've lived in a different country. I've lived in Hawaii, you know what I mean? So for me, I would never want to go back to living in the Bay Area. The Bay Area is a super toxic place to me, just in terms of the type of people who actually live in the Bay Area. Terrible place to live. One of the worst places you can be in the country, especially if you're a young black man who conducts yourself by a certain code. If you're a young black man who conducts yourself in a certain manner, the Bay Area is not a good place for you. Take some time, go explore a little bit. My personal recommendation would be that you move out of the country for a little bit if it's possible. I know a lot of people are moving out to places like Brazil, Colombia, you know what I mean, Thailand. Another good idea would be, maybe if you're somebody who's interested in moving to Asia, you can go out there and be an English teacher. I know a lot of people in Japan who are English teachers, and I know there's a lot of people who go to places like Taiwan, Korea, Vietnam, Thailand, all these places. You can go be an English teacher. You can make a decent amount of money, and when I mean a decent amount of money, let's say for instance you're an English teacher in Japan, or you're an English teacher in Korea, or even in Taiwan for that matter of fact. But I say let's just use Korea and Japan, just because I know their cost of living is pretty similar. If you're an English teacher in Japan, you're gonna make about $4,000 a month. Maybe give or take like 3,000, 4,000. If somebody knows better about this, they can actually correct me in the comment section, because I never did do the English teaching thing when I was living in Japan. But I think they make about 3,000, maybe $3,500, $4,000 a month, depending on where you're teaching at. I heard if you teach in the countryside, you actually get paid more. But now, that may not seem like a lot of money because you might be used to living in, you know, someplace like the Bay Area, San Francisco, or New York City, or Los Angeles, or one of these big cities, or Miami, one of these big cities where things cost a lot of money. It costs a lot of money. You're paying $1,500 a month. No, not even 50. You're paying $2,500 a month for, you're paying $2,500 a month for rent every month when you're living in these major cities. Even in Honolulu, the rent out here is pretty expensive. It's not necessarily like San Francisco prices and New York prices, but it's pretty expensive as well. So you're probably used to those type of prices in terms of your cost of living, and you're used to food being expensive. But if you go to Japan, or if you go to Korea, you can rent an apartment out there from anywhere from like $400 a month if you want a small studio, which is plenty fine, or you can get something bigger and more expensive, which might be about $1,000 a month maximum, and you can actually have some player shit. I know if I was to be renting a spot in Japan and I wanted to get, you can get a dope loft in Japan for like $800 a month. You know what I mean? When I lived in Japan, I was paying like $850 a month, and I had a big 1-bedroom apartment, nice balcony, right in a super convenient location, right in the main part of, like, if you what you would consider like downtown, or maybe like the tourist area of Osaka. And Osaka is a huge city. It's one of the top 10 biggest cities in the world when you think about the greater area of it. So I was living in a huge market, and I was living in a player ass spot in a player ass pad, and it only was costing me $850 a month. So you take these things into consideration. Sometimes you might want to just leave your area just because of the negativity, or you might just be around a lot of people who are stagnant. A lot of your friends aren't doing anything with their lives. Your family's kind of pushing you to go in a direction that maybe you don't want to go into. Or sometimes you just want to move out of an area like myself, where you living in the Bay Area. It's just literally too expensive to get ahead. You can't stack any money if you're living in the Bay Area and you're a young dude on the come up. If you're a young dude on the come up in the Bay Area, it's impossible to stack chips, because number one, you're not even going to be able to afford a spot by yourself, because you're going to have roommates. That's the reason why I was living with my ex-girlfriend in the Bay Area for like 5 years, because it was like, damn, where the hell am I going to find a place that I can actually afford to live by myself? Unless I'm one of these dudes who has one of these jobs in the tech field. And I don't have one of those type of jobs, and I didn't have one of those type of jobs in. And even if I did have one of those type of jobs, why would I want to, like, do San Francisco? 1-bedroom apartments are going for like $4,000 or $5,000 a month, probably like $5,000 a month. I remember I was looking at this website one day, and it said in San Francisco, in the Mission District, which is really just a regular ass neighborhood. It used to be just like a Hispanic community or Latino community that was like, it wasn't hood, but it was definitely not like no upper, no like high class neighborhood. The average apartment, 1-bedroom apartment in that neighborhood was like $4,100 a month. $4,100 a month. Dude, most people in this country's monthly salary is not $4,100. So if you're living in a place like San Francisco, it's impossible to get ahead when you're a young man or even a young woman who's trying to like do your thing, try to stack some money, have your free space, have your solitude, have your free time, have your mental clarity. So you're not even gonna have time to cultivate any skills or anything like that, because you're gonna be around the clock grinding. When I was living in the Bay, seemed like that's all I was ever doing was working. All I was ever doing was working overtime, trying to put in overtime hours, extra hours here, extra hours there. For what? Just to pay rent? You know what I mean? That's not what your life is supposed to be about. That's modern day slavery. You don't want to get caught up in that. Now, when you go to a place like Japan, you can get you can put your work in, and then you got time to, if you want to play around on a weekend and kick it and have some little extra, you're gonna have some little extra money to play around with, because like I said, the rent out there is not too expensive. The food out there is not too expensive. You could literally eat out every single day in Japan, get an apartment, and have money to kick it on the weekends, and still have a little bit of money to stack or save if you're doing it right, if you're living in a place like Osaka. Tokyo's a little bit more expensive, but still, even Tokyo, you can find places out there in different neighborhoods for $600, $700, $800, $900 a month. That's not that much money, you know what I mean? Maybe if you're coming from a place like Alabama, and no disrespect to Alabama, if you're coming from one of these Midwestern places, or Chicago, or maybe some of these other spots, maybe that might seem like a little bit stretching money, but it's probably not even too much than you're paying in a place like that. And just think about the difference between the quality of life of being able to live in a place like Japan, or being able to live in a place like Korea, and then living in a place like Chicago, or living in a place like Mississippi or something like that. And like I said, that's no disrespect to any of those places. Me personally, I just would personally rather live abroad and actually experience some new things, learn a different language, learn a new culture, different things like that. And this doesn't even take into consideration that if you're a person who actually has an online business or is able to have a job where you work online, then you can even go to even more player spots. You can go to a spot like Vietnam, you can go to a spot like Thailand, you can go to a spot like Brazil, you can go to a spot like Colombia, where the prices are dirt cheap. So let's just say, for instance, you want to spend $700, $800 a month on an apartment out there, you're going to be living in some super player shit. Trust me, you're going to be living in a super player pad. Even if you do it on Airbnb, you're going to be living in a cool spot. But let's just say, for instance, you do go out there, you find a lease, and you figure a way that you can, you know, manage to get a visa to live out there for a little while. Your money's gonna go so much further than it would go in any place that you're living in the United States. And on top of that, the environment is gonna treat you a lot better. And you're gonna have a lot of solitude and a lot of free time, especially when you go to these places where you don't speak the language at first. You're gonna have to take a lot of time, number one, to study to learn a language, which I highly recommend if you decide to go to another country. Or number two, just to, you know, take some time, because you're not going to have that many friends when you get out there, so you're going to have a lot of alone time anyways. And when you go have your alone time, you go out, explore, you meet people, you learn the language, you learn the culture, you learn the food, and you know, there's so many different benefits of living abroad. So this video wasn't really intended to be about living abroad, but I highly recommend that every young man think about living abroad, at least for some point in their life, some point in time. And you got to put yourself in a position to be able to do that. I would say stack money, maybe get a college degree if you want to be able to teach English overseas. That's going to be necessary if you want to get a job teaching English in a lot of these Asian countries. The only thing that you need as far as on your resume is just that you have a college degree and that you come from a country that's a native English speaking country. So if you come from the United States, you're good. If you come from United Kingdom, you're good. If you come from Ireland, you're good. If you come from Australia, you're good. All these different places, they're gonna hire you immediately just because you have a college degree and because you're from these countries. So it's an easy lick if you want to get to go overseas by doing that. Of course, there's other ways of doing it. I didn't want to go that route. I liked having my own free time and the flexibility of having my own business, and I was making a lot more money when I was living in Japan. But you know, that's not the only route you can go. It's not going to be as easy to go over and start a business in another country and have it be successful. There's a certain element of luck that went into play with what happened with me when I was living in Japan. So internationally, that's one route you can go, or just go to another state. Because to be honest with you, I honestly wouldn't have minded coming out to Hawaii for college. If I would have came out to Hawaii for college and went to University of Hawaii or Chaminade or any one of these schools out here in Honolulu, I most likely probably would have never left. I probably would have just been out here for years and years and years, established myself, maybe did a little traveling around from here and there. But at the end of the day, I'm living in paradise right now. It's December the 9th. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't really look that like the weather's that great today. It's a little overcasty, but man, I'm out here with my shirt off. It's probably 80 degrees, and the sun's gonna come out at some point today, because the sun comes out every single day out here. Every day is a beach day in Hawaii. So I would never be able to experience this if I was just stuck living in the Bay Area, where the weather sucks, the people suck, the women have bad attitudes, it's expensive as fuck, the cost of living is through the roof. You know what I mean? Why would I subject myself to that? So if you're living in an environment similar to that, why subject yourself to that? I got another young homie who's like my little brother. He's living in Colombia right now, and he's doing it big out there. You know what I'm saying? Always got a player apartment, got a whole fleet of women on the roster. You know what I'm saying? Got a whole fleet of women on the roster. So he got his main piece that's helping him with his business out there, and you know she's helping him out as you know, if he needs some help with the infrastructure out there in terms of the way things are done. And then he's got all his little side pieces. He be telling me about how the little broads in his building be chasing after him. So he's doing it big. He's out there living it up. He's big kicking it. And if it wasn't for the pandemic, he'd be kicking it even harder, because I've been out to Colombia and kicked it with him. If you go to any of my, if you go to some of my older videos, you can check one of my videos in Colombia. We was out there having a great time. And that's just normal everyday life for him. Going out, mingling with people, you know what I mean? Partying it up sometimes, handling business. You can go out there and work out. They got workout parks, nice gyms, all that type of stuff. You try some new food, and shit, while you out there, why not learn the language? Spanish is a really easy language to pick up anyway. So anyways, I don't want to ramble on too long. This video is actually going on a lot longer than I intended it to go on, but I did want to hammer home the idea of leaving where you're from and going exploring new territories. It's something that we should all do as men at some point in our life. And honestly, until you really find the place that you want to be, I would recommend you just keep exploring until you find that one place that really feels like home. For me, Hawaii feels like home. Japan feels like home. The Bay Area does to a certain extent, just because I was born and raised there, but I don't necessarily want to move back. But shit, who knows? This might not be the place that I settle down. I might end up moving to Brazil, or I might end up moving to some place in Asia, Taiwan, or something like that. Who knows where I'm gonna end up? Maybe I'm gonna be in Europe. Who knows? We never know, because there's endless possibilities out there. Once all this craziness slows down in the world and things kind of go back to normal, I'm gonna start traveling again, and you know, checking out some different places myself, because every corner of the world has some good energy in it. So I suggest everybody go out and explore, and you can start off with exploring your own country. But anyways, guys, I hope everybody's having a great day. I'll holler at you guys later. Peace.